grew up in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Not my favorite place, but I had the choice of leaving when I was about 18, I think it was. And I ventured off into the mountains to follow a snowboarding, not career, it was more of a hobby. I started to compete after that. But I grew up in Edmonton, and I'm grateful that I did come from there because I met my best friend, Sarah, and I had a pretty great upbringing. You know, I think a lot of people reflect on any kind of different traumas they've been through and how they grew up and how that influences their now life. And, you know, it was pretty decent. And I had a great mom and a stepdad, although I kind of held on to the idea of my father leaving at 2, that it was like my fault. So that stemmed from a lot of things. But anyways, long story short, I moved on and followed my parents to Lethbridge in Canada because they got a different job and I was just finishing high school. So I stayed on my own to finish. And then I decided I can't live with them. I've been on my own for like at least a year or two at 16. So there's no way I can live with them. So I went to Banff, Alberta, the Rockies, amazing place. And so yeah, I really got deep into that. And I ended up moving to Vancouver for most of my 20s. Vancouver, Canada, and beautiful spot. I grew up as an athlete, basically starting from gymnastics to soccer, basketball, you name it. I was just a natural athlete. And so I got really into dancing, breakdancing. And so I would go to different battles and compete and travel, and we had our crews, and it was like a big deal. I was deep into the hip hop culture. So it was, you know, a part of my 20s growing up, which was a great channel for me to channel my energy and my anger and the rage that I had from whatever I was holding on to in my youth. But with that came a culture of drugs and alcohol. So I got really into the partying. You know, I was still competing in snowboarding. However, the partying kind of took over, and I got into the film industry, and we all know how the film industry is. The entertainment industry can be very party, right? I think the pivotal part of my life coming back from the Vans Warped Tour I went on as a breakdancer, I kind of woke up to yoga found me in my life.
So how did you get into yoga?
Right, and to back it up, the profession, I am now a yoga teacher trainer. I got into it because I was really into skateboarding as well. And I had a skateboard injury. I broke my ankle, and it was pretty traumatic because I've never broken a bone in my life. And I've been really involved in sports, so I'm pretty surprised. I did have a really harsh injury in a snowboard contest in my pelvis, which created a lot of pain throughout my 20s. And I kind of just dealt with it through chiropractic treatments and all different kind of holistic therapies. And then once I broke my ankle, it was this turning point. Either I'm going to continue doing skateboarding, and I actually skated harder after I broke my ankle. It was like this initiation into, oh yeah, now I'm a real skateboarder. But I needed a place to heal. I needed to heal somehow. And so someone told me to go to Bikram's yoga to heal my body physically. And I didn't know mentally and emotionally and spiritually that would come with it too. Because for yoga, I stretched naturally as an athlete. I was a runner, and we just naturally just stretched because we knew it would feel good. We knew it would help our muscles and lactic acid and all the things. And so I was doing it without knowing it was called yoga. I was kind of in that zone of it. But it opened up a whole door of things for me. And then, so I got into it, I healed from my ankle injury, and that's when I went on that tour, the Vans Warped Tour, and I came back, and it was a crazy summer of just way too much partying. And it was like this rock star style life experience that I had. And then I came back, and it was like, wow, shifting from 29 to 30, it was like your Saturn return, time of big questions, lots of stuff happening. Where am I? Who am I? What's going on? And so I knew that there was something bigger out there. I knew that I was seeking something deeper. And I knew the lifestyle I had was not going to be sustainable. So yoga really started to shift my perspective and how I wanted to live my life and really step into who I was and have a career in something. Like I knew I was a good teacher because I would teach dance or whatever it was, but I didn't know that yoga would be my purpose, you know? And once you find that, once you click into like, wow, I'm supposed to do this for the rest of my life and I'm going to help others' lives shift, that's like a huge awakening, and it shifts everything in your life. And my family finally was like, wow, the gypsy girl, now we respect her. Unfortunately, they didn't know what to think of me then because I was just a wild child and I didn't know what I wanted. And so I just felt like, wow, I finally found something that I can ground into here and be of service to people. So that started my career really when I took my first teacher training in 2005. And then I went and did the basic Hatha yoga. And then I went on to do Ashtanga yoga, another style, Sattva yoga. And then I went to India to do a 300-hour. And from there, just did other little tiny trainings. And I realized when 2014 hit, my mother had passed away. And it was like this trajectory of my life splitting. And that's when I went to India and I realized I need to do these trainings now. I need to be able to teach people this because these teachings have been so profound for me that I really want to plant this seed in other people. So I ended up coming back and writing my manual, and I had my first training in 2015. And since then I've been linking up with Epic Self, which we had our own little team group there, and we would do Costa Rica trainings and then Thailand trainings. And my dream was always to teach in a Spanish-speaking tropical place, either doing yoga or massage. But that was really how I got into yoga, and it has evolved to this teacher training program now that I'm so grateful to have.
Oh, that's amazing how you found your purpose through yoga. And you touched on a little bit about the different styles of yoga. Can you explain all the different styles and what yoga actually is? What does it consist of?
Yeah, absolutely. So really, there's so many different ways to get up a mountain, and we all reach the summit at one point, or maybe not all. But definitely it does reach to one place. So there's one truth. There's different ways and different styles. And this has been said by Gandhi and B.K.R. Sarangar and different swamis and teachers just in different ways, right? There's so many different paths, but there's one truth. So there are different types of yoga, but it all kind of reaches to that one meaning. Yoga means union, right? To bind or to yoke. That's the Sanskrit breakdown of what yoga is, and finding this true self, back to truth. And so it breaks down into different 4 types, and really they are karma, bhakti, raja, and so karma really is selfless action, right? So it's you're doing something out of not expecting something in return. And the basic breakdown is, and I'll kind of explain the branches of it too, if you want me to go there.
Yeah,
but
sure.
Karma, and then bhakti is like devotion, right? Love, chanting. It basically means devotion, love of the practice. And a lot of that involves like mantra and chanting and stuff like that. And then there's Raja, which is way more of what we do now, kind of. Rajas means the king yoga. So it's like Kriyas. So Kriyas is cleansing. And in Kundalini, they call them Kundalini Kriyas. It's like an exercise that you do. So it's cleansing and moving the body. But it's also the mind, because Raja's more like the mind coming into this oneness. So from Raja, it branches off into what we now call Hatha yoga and Ashtanga yoga. And it's really all an umbrella of Hatha, because that meaning force or action or physical movement. And so it branches from this, and then you get all these other Ashtanga, Vinyasa, and all these style names like Yin and Bikram, which now in the West, that's what we know yoga as styles, right? And you can practice any different style. But really, it's all bringing you into this relationship with self and back to the breath. And it can do so many different things to help calm your mind, right? Because really moving through the body, there's lots of energy, emotions, energy and motion. And you want to be able to move that energy and transmute it so that we can actually calm our mind. What was the last one? The last one, there's 4 types, is Jnana or Jnana. So meaning wisdom, like the intellect. And that's knowledge. So the knowledge of learning different scriptures and texts, ancient texts, Bhagavad Gita, all of those kind of things. And, you know, the 8 limbs and the Yoga Sutras. So that's like a basic 101 breakdown of the 4 types. And then the styles are whatever suits you, right? At first, Bikram was suitable for me because that's all I really knew at the time. And it helped me heal physically. But right now, I don't really necessarily agree with the philosophy around Bikram and the background of where it comes from. But I still am grateful for how it started my path. I'm really more into just a very basic hatha style, you know, foundational classical. Yeah. So that's about it.
What would you say are some of the benefits of yoga? So you mentioned at an early age where you were recovering from your ankle. So it's obviously good for rehabilitation and recovery from injuries. But what are some of the other benefits of yoga?
Okay, yeah. So I would say for sure the physical part, but there's always a mental component, emotional, spiritual, to really anything we do, if that's what you open yourself to want to be in, right? Because we are these spiritual, we're all of it. It's all encompassing in us. But when you first start out, I think that part of it scares people, that spiritual and emotional part, because they sometimes don't want to look at that side of it. So I feel like physically it helps ground you, it helps settle you, it helps the parasympathetic nervous system calm you and bring you into that more less of a stressful fight or flight state, because we all know that that is not a good place for healing. And a lot of dis-ease comes from that, you know, part of the body experiencing all this high cortisol levels. So it helps with that, and it brings you back into your breath, because we can breathe naturally as we do every day without knowing. We're just doing it. We're breathing in and out, not really conscious of it. But when you're actually putting that in a conscious, like pranayama, where you're controlling it and doing all this different breath work, it brings you back into so many different systems that are being fleshed out, respiratory, digestion, like, I mean, all the systems in the body will really be affected. It's not just that physical part of it, your mental components and your emotional. So I feel like it's really a holistic thing, and it can be a nice foundation and complementary to anything that you do in life. Because we all know that I mean, it's funny how all the doctors now are on, which is great. I love it, that they're all on board with it. They're telling their patients, you got to try meditation. You got to do meditation. And I've been saying this for 16 years. I'm like, it'll change your life. There's so many more benefits to it now that we didn't know back then, right? Now it's backed with science. Yeah. And so it's acceptable. And it's not this woo-woo, like it's, you know, people thought it was a religion and all this stuff. And it's really Dhamma. It's the law of Dharma. Like you're noticing and observing your true nature. And we are nature. And all the elements are involved with that, right? Ayurvedic, earth, fire, sun, water, all of the elements. So yeah, that's basically kind of a breakdown of it.
Yeah. And we are definitely seeing a shift, because before all these things were considered as maybe alternative medicine, and I think now they're being considered as traditional medicine. So it's nice to see how we're moving away from like pills being the solution for everything and moving towards self-healing and using the power within us to heal ourselves. And I think that goes back to thousands of years, right, where we were doing this, and maybe some of that just has been lost over the years.
Yes, absolutely. And we do have the power to heal on our own if we are aware of that. And we've been so programmed because of whether it's political or, just financial or whatever the case is, whatever agenda that is being placed. And I don't want to go deep down that rabbit hole because I like it. But it's really phenomenal to see people now and have this sustainability and self-healing, because once you try it, once you actually practice it, you feel the benefits of it. And you know that a lot of it is from the mind. And this is where a lot of the knowledge and teachings come from, is from the mind, is in the thoughts, and how that can create suffering, right? They talk about it in the Yoga Sutras, in the texts, of being the kleshas, which is basically poison of the mind. And it comes from your ego, attachments, fear of death. And so all of that, and not knowing who we are. So it comes back to who are we and the capabilities that we have as humans to actually heal our own bodies through our minds. So I definitely am so grateful that people are finally waking up to that.
Yeah, for sure. And have you always been spiritual? Was it just later in your teenage years where you became spiritual? Would you say you were spiritual from a younger age?
Yeah, that's a good question, because there's so many different layers to that. I feel like you can have this awakening each day you get out of bed, and it depends on your mind frame of where you're going to go with your thoughts. Like, I started as a young child. I was raised by a mother that was very spiritual, in a sense that she had good intent. And I mean this by she had all the books, she would read all the things, she would believe in all the things, but sometimes when it came to that human aspect of practicing it, it would be very difficult, and it would get thrown out the window. And then I gave her a little bit more of, allowed that to be more of an acceptance of, we are human. And just because I'm this yoga teacher and I practice and teach all these things, doesn't mean sometimes when I get cut off in traffic, under my breath, I don't say the F-bomb to them. Like, that's just a natural reaction. But the thing is, with the spiritual path, is you recognize it a lot sooner, and you kind of step back and go, oh, okay, I'm going to bring on all the practices. So as a young girl, I definitely felt like I had this spirituality within me. I have Native blood in me, or First Nations. And I felt like it just came with that territory of just this natural knowing there's something bigger than me. I wasn't growing up in any religion, but I would gravitate to my friends that did go to church, and I would go because I just wanted to hang out with them. And church being a religion, spirituality, I'm open to all is, right? So I think when the first really time it hit me, because I was still really in my ego, like so in my ego in my 20s and 30s. And I think it really hit me after my mom died. So I found her body. And when I touched a dead body, being my mother's, which is so close to me, I realized that there is so much more than we don't know and that we know. So it's like, the more I think I know, the more I don't know. And that's when you're on the spiritual path and being in this ego base. Ego doesn't live when you're in humility, when you're humble. And I think when I became 40 and on, I'm like mid 40s now, I realized that it's a way different world. And obviously it is, but every day it's just that awareness piece. And so the spiritual journey has been an interesting path for me. And it's all about moment-to-moment awareness, really. Right? Yeah. Being here, being now, and learning and unlearning. And yeah, so I don't think I was always spiritual, but I had this natural knowing that there was just more than just this body. So
what would you say have been your biggest learnings from yoga, or as a teacher of yoga as well?
Oh boy, it's like an ongoing journey for sure. I think the biggest thing is, like I mentioned before, the more I think I know, the more I don't know. And the more it puts me back into this beginner mind frame so that I can be open to that humility of just being human and accepting myself and not being so hard on myself when something does a mistake, which really isn't a mistake. It's basically a learning lesson because the universe is providing what we need to see in this moment for us to evolve. Right? So I think the biggest learning from all these teachings is just the aspect of knowing that there's this soul in this body, and it's the impermanence of life, and that this is all very temporary. And I mean, I feel like the deaths that I did experience and the grief that I did experience 7 years ago with bunch of family members going on me, I just realized, like, wow, this is such a very temporary time, and just live every moment as though it was your last, because we have no idea when we're going to go, and we really don't. And I feel like all the teachings of yoga prepare you to get there, because Shavasana is corpse pose. It's your deathbed. Basically, we're rebirthing a new person every day, or every practice, or every moment. It's a new person if you want to open yourself to reflect on that, if you want to be open to that change, right? But we fear change. So, I mean, there's so many things I've learned from it, but I keep stepping back to the basics of, you know what, I'm just human, and be kind to yourself, because you could go down this rabbit hole of I'm not this or I'm not that, or what the mind spirals us down to. Just be open to keep learning and reprogramming the old stuff, like the old stories that we just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, the revelations. So many different teachings. I'm grateful for all of them. I think meditation has been the biggest one for me, because I realized the mind and the thoughts are so crucial to how we're living our lives, how we react and how we respond to things, the emotions that we need to feel and not suppress and numb. That's been a big one because of growing up in my 20s, just suppressing with drugs and alcohol and not wanting to feel things that actually need to be felt so that we can heal and just move on and be present with it.
So just on chakras, what are the different chakras?
So the chakras, there's a lot of different chakras that are aware of just the 7 that we talk about, but I usually just talk about the basic 7 that are often depicted in, that you will see online and on the internet, you know, all the different colors that come through. So the first one is really at the base, and it's called the root chakra, Muladhara chakra. And that's just the foundation. Like, that's the basic one. And there's even said to be some that are the first one that are in the earth, the root. But I consider the root chakra the root as you're connecting to the earth. And the color is red. Obviously, the element is earth. And it's your sense of belonging and foundation. So your tribe and your family and your basic needs for survival, right? Food, water, shelter. And if all of these things or any of these things are unstable, then you can feel it through your body. Like for me, traveling was a big one because I was living out of a suitcase and I was not in one place and I didn't know really where I belonged. So for me, I wanted to always work on that first chakra. And I would go after I came out of a plane and walk on the earth and ground and step in barefoot on the earth, right? Whether it's grass or sand. So that was a big one for me. Second is just your Swadhisthana. So it's the sacral chakra, right? And it's all kind of runs along the spine. And there's different channels where the Kundalini rises, right? And we can get into that later if you want. But second chakra is orange, and it represents your relationship and creativity and sexuality. And the element is water, so just this fluid flow. The third one is Manipura chakra, so it's about the solar plexus area. And this is like our power center, our fire. So the element is fire, and the color is yellow. So think like the sun, solar. And it's very, you know, this is where our self-worth is, transformation, digestion, all of that lies through there. Excuse me. And then the fourth one is the heart. And obviously the heart is located at the heart center. It's green and it's Anahata chakra. So this one represents our love and compassion, unconditional love, relationships as well. But more, you know, it's funny how it kind of starts with this relationship with self, and then it starts to go upwards. So there's this border between matter and spirit. And the heart chakra starts to get more into the spirit realms as you go higher up the chakra. So the throat, which I'm feeling like I'm a little bit stuck right now, is the throat chakra. So this is blue, the color is blue. And really what this represents obviously is communication, self-expression, and speaking your truth. So this one can get blocked for a lot of people. A lot. There's lots of different exercises you can do with these two. And if anyone wants to go deeper with this, I have like a free booklet PDF on my Instagram account, Aly Paws. So you can go there and just kind of download that. And then the sixth one is your Ajna. So it's like intuition and intuitive center. Indigo is the color. So our third eye, basically, opening up that cosmic eye, and more so looking inwards, really. But it's expansive, because you realize your abilities that you have in your intuitive ability. And then of course the crown. So the crown chakra, Sahasrara, and this is like the 1,000th petaled lotus, which is samadhi and enlightenment and bliss. And just kind of opening up from all of these being aligned. So those are the chakras, and chakra mean the wheel. So there's these spinning vortexes basically through the body, energetic anatomy.
And how do you know if there's an imbalance in one of the chakras? How do you find out that? That's
a good question. Because it's you know, it's hard, especially if you're not even aware. Even if you are aware of them, it's like how do I know if it's this invisible thing I can't see? But it is energy. So the thing is, you have to kind of feel into it. Either, you know, a good way to go is sometimes going to a Reiki master practitioner, and they can kind of go through it and feel which ones are blocked. But intuitively, I think meditation is a good place to start, because that's the doorway to your intuition. The intuition, yeah, it's really the doorway to that intuitive knowing, because you have the time to sit and listen. But when you do, the times that I know, if you are aware of them, you kind of study which each one represents, then you figure out what's going on in your life at that time. So say if, like I mentioned, the root being out or just a little bit imbalanced, I feel like I'm traveling lots, I'm going from place to place, I don't feel grounded, and those kind of things, that's when I know I need to work on my root chakra, like something might be imbalanced there or just unstable. And then, you know, when you say if you're having certain relationship or money or those kind of issues coming up for you, then you might be out a little bit in the second chakra. So once you know which one represents, then you can kind of piece that together on whether it's feeling out or not, right? And
then how do you channel energy to those different chakras?
Okay, yeah. So the really good way is to, I usually like to lay down and do yoga nidra. And you can, say if I pick the sixth chakra and I'm feeling like I'm very indecisive right now, I need to tune into my intuition, which is something that's coming up for me lately, because I want to move to Tulum, and I'm like, what do I do? Canada's crazy right now. So I will put like an amethyst crystal or something on, and amethyst is purple, it represents the indigo of the sixth chakra. And then I'll feel through the vibrations of that while I'm either doing yoga nidra or listening to binaural beats. Because then if you listen to binaural beats that kind of have the same frequency as the sixth chakra, it can kind of move through that layers. And we're just energy, right? We are we're energy. And so the molecules and atoms and everything bouncing off of each other, we can feel, especially music, because everything is sound, everything. But Om, the vibration of the universe, is sound. So when we tap into that sound and frequency, it is so powerful. You can feel that through your tissues, and it starts to open up that area and maybe start getting it. You can visualization is a big one too. You can visualize the chakra wheel and that color spinning at a really healthy frequency, not too fast, because if this is too fast, the throat chakra is too fast, you're over talking and you're interrupting and you're not listening. If it's stuck and sluggish and slow and stagnant, kind of, really, it never really stops. I think that's the misconception, is chakras get blocked, but I think they're always just there and moving. It's just whether it's balanced or not, whether it's spinning or slow. And so it's there, and if it's sluggish and slow, you're not speaking your truth, you can't speak up, those kind of things, right? So yeah, that's a good way to move through the energies.